Welcome back to Finding Your Casual Magic. This is the series where we find beauty in the little things every single day. We all look forward to the 1% of days in our lives that are extraordinary, like the wedding, the birthday, the job promotion. But 99% of days in our lives are just ordinary. And wouldn't it be sad if we only allowed ourselves to feel joy 1% of the time? Today's episode is very special because we're filming it at home. So I hope it can inspire you to feel equally cozy, grab a hot drink. Today we're talking about finding your casual magic through the transformative power of journaling. You've probably heard things like, journaling's going to change your life, and all these declarative statements about the power of journaling, but maybe you have absolutely no idea what journaling means, how to get started, what to do when you hit a blank page. And today we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of how to journal most effectively for you. One of the hidden benefits of journaling that I don't think I realized until quite recently actually is that if you're trying to learn a language, you can challenge yourself to journal in the language that you're trying to learn. So I've been trying to learn German for a few years, and when you're journaling, you realise all the words that you want to use day to day but don't yet know. If any of you want to learn a language, I genuinely cannot recommend enough this platform called Lingoda. I didn't know any German. I had zero German. And after doing this thing called a Lingoda Sprint, I literally got myself to a place where I was conversational A2. And they have two options with the sprint. So you have a daily sprint for 60 days. We're doing class every single day with this group of people, with a native speaking teacher. But if it's too intense to have a class every single day, you could also do a class every other day for 60 days. And if you complete every single class, you can get 50% cash back, or you can get credits to keep your language learning journey going, and you can do future classes. And we have an exclusive offer, literally just for people listening to the podcast today. If you guys want to get a discount on Lingoda Sprint, then you can use the code MAGIC20. That is MAGIC 20. And thank you so much, Lingoda, for sponsoring today's video. Today's guest is someone that I have genuinely been desperate to meet in person for so long. Like, I feel so selfishly happy that we're doing this episode today. I am interviewing the wonderful Coralia, and I've been following her on Instagram for years, and she just creates the warmest, wisest content. I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of having one of her reels pop up, but she'll kind of have these reflections on life and the way that she's evidently reflected on her own journey is just so, you can tell she's done the work. You can tell that she's got these tools and practices that let her look at her life through so many different layers. And she actually started a journaling company recently, and I'm lucky enough to have a copy of it here. If you guys are watching the podcast, you can see the beautiful journal. The DailyDeep is honestly probably the most beautiful journal I've ever seen in my life. Like, the aesthetics of it are just gorgeous. The way that the questions have been written is with such care, and I can't wait to chat with her more today about how to journal, how to get into it, what inspired her to make this beautiful book, and how it's helped her through some of the roughest times in her life. So without further ado, welcome, Coralia.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
How are you feeling right now?
A mix of bit tired, bit relaxed, bit excited. It's a good combination. I think we're gonna have a great conversation.
Yes. And also, maybe it's worth noting, we're recording this on basically the hottest day ever. We're kind of just sitting here melting.
Like, I'm fine.
And also, Coralia kind of came all the way from Berlin for this, which is crazy. So there's so much wisdom we're going to dig into today. We have two rituals at the start of every episode. The first is that I'm going to play us a casual magic that someone has sent in, just to kind of set the tone of the episode. And I actually haven't listened to this either, so this is going to be my first time hearing this. And this week's casual magic is from Maria.
Hello, Jade. I hope you're well. My name is Maria, and I'm from Portugal. I currently live in Belgium for my studies. I wanted to share my casual magic of this week. I've had several and it was hard to choose, but the other night the sky was super clear. I live in an area with minimal lighting, so it was really easy to see the stars, and I just felt like vastness and amazingness of our expanding universe. I felt really small but also really free, and it was just a beautiful sight to experience. Thank you. Kisses.
Oh, that was so gorgeous. I feel like Maria took us to the stargazing in Portugal.
It's like I'm small but big, and it's yeah. I know that feeling. It's beautiful.
Like being aware of your own insignificance.
Yeah,
like,
it can be
the
really
best way.
comforting, but also scary. But I feel like more comforting even, because you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
it's okay. I'm small. That's perfect. You know.
Yeah. Like all my worries actually aren't as big as they might feel. And the second ritual is I want to invite my guest and all of you guys listening to do a short 60-second meditation with me. And this is just an opportunity to ground yourself, to kind of check in with your body, check in with the surroundings, and maybe if you're cycling or if you're in public, no pressure to close your eyes. You can also just take this moment to become present with what's around you. I hope that in the next minute you come away feeling lighter and clearer and ready to dig into today's episode. Take a second to notice where you are in space. Are you in a room? If so, how big is the room? Are you outside? What can you see? And if you feel comfortable to do so, gently close your eyes. Start to become aware of your breathing. Notice where you feel the breath in your body. Maybe noticing the rise of your chest and belly at the inhale and fall on the exhale. Imagine yourself rooting down into the ground, feeling grounded and aware. Root down into a space where it's safe to feel, to reflect, and to know yourself just a little bit more deeply today. Let your mind arrive in this moment, and if you notice any thoughts, just let them pass through your mind like clouds in an open sky. We're going to do a final 4, 6, 8 breath, where you'll take a deep inhale for 4, hold it for 6, and then exhale for 8. So when you're ready, deep inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold at the top for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and big exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you can gently open your eyes. Welcome to the episode. How did that feel for you?
That was nice. It's good, because especially like when you're doing a podcast, it's like, okay, it's so good to have like a moment of grounding before.
100%.
Great.
I think especially when you've got the mic and you've got the lights and the setup, you know, you're kind of like, oh, this is professional. I need to say wise things now. I would love to get us started by asking you a few explorative questions that you inspire people on your platforms to kind of ask themselves. I would love for you to introduce yourself by not mentioning where you're from, where you live, or what you do for a living. Who are you, Coralia?
I know this question. Yeah, I've never actually answered it myself in that way. It's different when someone asks you, and I think it changes all the time. I think I'm a very excited soul to like see the world and experience all the beauty of it and the small nuances. I love the feeling of melancholy. I think the beauty of feeling both sad and happy at the same time is like one of my nicest states of being.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about melancholy as their favorite feeling or state, because I think we often shy away from any feeling states that could be perceived as more negative or sad, and I think melancholy sits next to sadness in some ways, or like nostalgia. Like it's there's like so much wrapped up in the feeling.
Yeah, it's almost like people are scared of feelings that are more leaning towards sadness or in the middle on that spectrum. But why, right? It's because we're thinking that sadness is a bad emotion to have, or melancholy as well, right? And why am I not happy? And we are questioning it. Right?
Yeah. It's like sadness is a state which you're trying to change, like rather than an endpoint in itself.
Rather than sitting in it and just being like, observing it.
I love
cool.
that. An observant, excited soul.
Yeah.
If you were to meet yourself as a stranger, which aspects of yourself would be the most noticeable?
I love that I'm getting these back at me. It's a good one. Ooh, I think I'm an introvert for sure. But then when I meet people, I can be very extroverted. And I love that about myself, that I can like switch and have both these things in me at the same time. So I think the thing that you would notice quickly is that I ask so many questions. Someone was like, girl, you're asking so many questions, like let me ask you something, you know. But I'm just like genuinely so interested in people that I just love hearing about their lives and like the nuances of their experiences. Yeah. I think that's the thing that you would notice the most quickly.
I met you for the first time like an hour ago. And I think something that I notice about you is you're really good at eye contact.
I think sometimes, you know, when you start overthinking, like,
no, you're not
looking
gonna
at
look
you
at
too
me.
much.
Oh gosh, you're just gonna look away.
Just gonna build stories this too much, right? I don't know. Yeah, but I think it's important. It is such a non-communicative. I mean, it holds a lot of communication, right? 100%. But if you don't do it, and if you also don't, if you don't do it enough either, like it just shows interest, right? When you're actually like, take time to observe someone. You're like, we're here, present.
Yes,
together.
Yeah, you feel so present. And the third question, when did you last feel the most alive?
Ooh. I think yesterday. I already told you about it. I did like a little get together for the first time, because I also do like a bit of social media. And it was so nice to just get people together for the first time and see faces, because you're so detached from, like, it's an online platform, right? You need to see faces at some point. Just these are the humans behind the texts, right? That made me feel so alive and like so cared for. I was like, wow, this is such a, it made me feel really alive. I think you can relate. It just shows you what you're creating, shows you the value of it as well.
And reminds you why you do it.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but unfortunately, you just can't help but notice numbers, right? You can't help but think about things like views and comments and like you get to the point as a creator where you forget that this large number, right, these numbers in the thousands are literal humans with faces, with personalities, with minds and lives beyond you. And I think when you get to meet people in person, you're like, it just like regrounds you to why you create.
Yeah, and it gives you that motivation back as well. Because like whenever you feel like a bit unmotivated, and like probably like you as well, right? You have moments where you're just like, who actually wants to listen to me? Like, why should I continue?
I'm just yapping into a microphone.
Literally, like, come on. And then it just really helps to see people acknowledging your work, right? Because we don't have colleagues, which is also a crazy thing, right?
I'd say we're colleagues.
And so it helps to meet you, right?
Yeah,
What a perfect excuse to come here.
Yeah.
And just like, oh, thank God, like I get that as well. Like it's a double grounding into my job and what I do and why we do it.
Let's chat journaling. I think journaling has almost become quite a vague term online, where a lot of people know they should do it, know that it's useful for their mental health in some way that maybe they don't understand. But I would love if you could explain what is the meaning of journaling?
I think in the beginning of my journaling journey, I always journaled in a way where I thought someone might end up seeing it.
Interesting.
And that's already such a wrong way to do it, because you should journal in a way that is the most honest, the most raw version of yourself. It's just a place to dump your wildest thoughts. Like the best way to describe journaling, I think, is a way to have a conversation with yourself. Because in our heads, we think so many things and it's always going in loops. And when you write it down and you actually do this connection of like, okay, mental to physical, and you see it on paper and you can literally read it back, that's when you actually have this conversation with yourself for the first time. You see your thoughts on paper and not just in your mind fleeting and repeating and kind of like mashed up in a weird way. You can actually see the patterns that are repeating themselves.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Whoa, okay, wait, I have so many questions. Because I feel like there's almost two separate things you've mentioned here, which is like the act of the writing of journaling, but then the looking back at it. And I don't consider the looking back at it enough. Like I journal, I don't know if you've heard of something called morning pages. It's a type of journaling that I discovered in The Artist's Way. If you've ever heard of this book. Yeah, it's like most creative people will probably stumble upon this book at some point. Yeah, and one of the things you have to do in this 12-week course of The Artist's Way is every single day wake up and brain dump for 3 whole pages without thinking, just your subconscious thoughts onto the page, and you're not allowed to read it back. And I find that interesting. Yeah. Yeah, and so I think because that was part of my introduction to journaling, I've gotten into a habit of sort of dumping things onto a page and then not coming back to it. Yeah, so it's so interesting to hear like how the reading of it has like given you so much.
Yeah, I see my journal as like an extended part of my brain. Almost like I dump it very like free-flowingly onto a page so that it can keep the chaos for me and I don't have to keep it in my brain. I'd consider there are like 3 different categories of journaling almost.
Oh, tell me.
I'll give it to you.
Give me the categories.
Like the one that you mentioned now is like a free flow. Okay. So it's like the uninhibited stream of consciousness from your brain to the page. You don't think, just write. And it doesn't have to actually be a sentence. It can like be a word, be a chopped up version of whatever you're thinking. And that can be incredibly liberating if you are good at not attaching too much value to your thought, or not being, if you're not a perfectionist also, I think it's easier almost. Because what it does, and what I think a lot of people are a bit scared about doing when they do this free flow of thoughts, is that they get kind of scared of a blank page. Yeah. Right? And it's like, oh, what should I write? Right? It's a bit scary. And so there's this other category of journaling that is more of like a reflective journaling. So you have like a category, like a topic maybe that you set yourself to journal. So you just, maybe it's your day, maybe it's a gratitude journal, maybe it's a creative journaling. Can also be art, right? Drawing can also be like a great form of journaling without words, but just like emotions and color and shapes. And then there's this kind of like prompted journaling, which is kind of more of also what I created. It's prompts from outside of yourself. So you get questions and inputs that you maybe haven't thought about yet, which makes you have a bit more of a secure space to shape a thought based on a topic that is given to you. So it isn't as overstimulating maybe as a blank page can be.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. Because I think when you've got these prompts, as you say, it's almost like it's holding you. It's holding your thoughts. It's saying, you know, there's no pressure to like unpack like the crazy chaos that's going on in your head. You just need to like almost funnel it through this question. How do you think people should explore different types of journaling, and how can people know what type is best for them?
I think it starts with the why, right? Why did you start journaling those types of pages, right? Like what prompted you to actually want to sit down and write down your thoughts? So maybe you have a why of like, oh, I want to be more productive. So you journal on topics that are based on productive journaling or creativeness, right? How can I make a good flow of creative thoughts come to my head, and how can I funnel that into my journaling? So yeah, it's based on the why. It's literally based on the why. It's like, okay, for example, if you are a bit more anxious, for example, so you need to let go of your thoughts. You need to like funnel them into a page. And like I said, that's why I started journaling in the first place. Like, I was a really anxious person, and I was like, okay, I need to like put all these thoughts on paper so that they are not stuck in my head. So that's where the freeform journaling comes in, right? You just brain dump. That's it. So for example, anxiety is great if you like funnel things out of your head. And for example, a prompted journal would be like, oh, I crave education on myself. So I want to look into like the deep nooks and crooks and crannies of my mind and like try and explore it. So that's maybe like a bit more like, oh, I want to get something new into my brain versus get something out of my brain. So I think, yeah, look at your why and then decide on like, do I want it prompted? Do I want it freeform? Do I want it kind of like a bit more structured with gratitude or just about your day?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Like, I feel like that's so clear. Like, do I want to get something out and put that on there and then maybe like look back at all these thoughts in my head to help unpick it? Or I love the phrase, do I want an education about myself? Because then you're asking these questions to like interrogate your experience more. And I think sometimes like, how do we even know, how do we know what to ask ourselves? Right? How can you ask things that you can't even know yet or imagine? I think that's why prompts are so beautiful, to kind of like get you there.
100%. And you're saying exactly that is exactly the reason why I created this book in the first place. People are incredibly stuck in their own bubbles, me included, right? So the questions that we as friends ask ourselves, or you with your family ask yourself, they're limited to the experience that you and also these people have in the world. And so if you don't move out of that bubble, which is really difficult, if you force yourself out of it or get to a new bubble, I mean, then you're just in a new bubble. So same thing there, so kind of, true. Right? And I think a lot of people are in bubbles that aren't necessarily super like, where this type of like self-reflection or softness, or, you know, where emotions are maybe like not so allowed, right? So these questions that hold depth don't really come your way. Yeah. So how would you know, how to ask yourself these questions if you don't know that there are topics that you can actually talk about and deal with? Yeah. Here's a friend that can ask you these questions so that you don't feel alone, and also you feel like, oh, these questions exist, and like there are people out there who deal with like who think like this, right? Because if you're stuck in a bubble, it's difficult to have that.
So true. And I think you can only ask someone else a question that you've asked yourself.
Oh, I like that.
Right? To like even have to put language to something means that you must have experienced it in some way or had a curiosity about it.
That's true.
So yeah, it's like, if the people in your life aren't interrogating their own experience that deeply, then like, how could they also ask you to do the same? It's so true.
I think, like I said, like it's journaling is almost like a conversation with yourself, right? So equally as important as having conversations with others and talking about these things and asking your friends questions and having them ask you questions so you can like reflect on what is happening in your head and in their heads, it's equally as important to have these conversations with yourself. Because we can get so stuck in our own heads that to get that language out, to reflect back on it, listen to what you're actually having to say is incredibly important. So I think the combination is really the key to understanding yourself and your way of life, your meaning in your community, how you want to be, how you want to act, right? Communication is key, but with yourself and with others, both. Yeah.
Why do you think that we should want to get to know ourselves better?
Like, as humans, it is inevitable that we kind of have this kind of I guess I would call it like the pain of existing almost.
Real.
Right? like it's an actual like, oh, the human experience can be so joyful but also so heavy at the same time, and we experience so much pain through the patterns that we have created for ourselves and that we are living through. So that if we understand ourselves better, we can try and alleviate that experience of pain a bit more and try and create a life for ourselves that makes us flow a bit better. Maybe we turn a bit happier, or maybe we just like alleviate that pain a bit, which I think that's the reason why it's incredibly important to just get to know yourself a bit better, to just understand your patterns and how you can solve these places of resistance, right?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because in order to alleviate that pain that you're describing, you actually have to look at it. And I think so many people live their lives avoiding it. And I think that can like amplify pain.
Yeah. Are you good at opening a door and like actually opening it fully and not just having a peek?
Yeah, journaling's like, let's throw open that door. Let's go in. Yeah. What advice would you give to someone who doesn't want to look at the pain, doesn't want to open the door, like knows they should journal, knows they should look at these things, but doesn't feel like they can?
People can tell you all the advice in the world, right? She'd be like, oh, you should journal. Have you tried going to therapy? Have you tried like talking to a friend about it? Blah, 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 right? If you do not want to change yourself, it will not happen. And if you are not, like, the change then usually happens when you are so uncomfortable that the discomfort of staying in that place is so big that change is inevitable, right? It's almost like, you know, when you hit rock bottom, it's almost kind of also a nice feeling, because you know, like, oh, that just literally like torpedoes you towards change.
True.
Because you're so uncomfortable. Yeah. So I think it's like almost, if you do not decide on change, it won't happen. So you can decide on it, or you can wait for it to become so uncomfortable. It's like learning by the experience of having this experience yourself. Yeah.
That's so profound, because I feel like, yeah, it's like, do you want to have this proactive approach of the education of self? Like, do you want to start that education when you're not at rock bottom, right? And to start to learn about the patterns in yourself, to start to maybe question moments where you're slightly uncomfortable, to ask questions of, what does an ideal life look like for me? How do I want to live? Or if you don't want to start that process yet, eventually you'll hit a point where all that discomfort is so large that you just feel like it's a breaking point and you have to change something.
Have you had a moment like that?
Have I had a moment like that? I think, so for me, in my last relationship, I think I stayed in that relationship a year too long.
A year's
a long time. It is. Because I didn't want to face the discomfort of asking the heavy questions around that relationship, right? About why it maybe didn't feel perfect, because everything on surface looked so perfect. So even when I'd be journaling, like, I almost wouldn't let myself touch the line of thought that was like not happy, you know, in that relationship. So I had not necessarily like a breaking point, but a moment where it kind of hit me that, like, I'm really unhappy, and if I don't do something about this now, my life will just continue in this inauthentic place for longer. Yeah. Like
the door almost like the wind just comes and it's just like, look at it. Once you start, you see how valuable it is. It's almost like meditation, right? You're like, oh, I do it for like 5 minutes first, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, if I do like half an hour, how does that feel? And then you experiment, and then you're like, wow, oh my God, I feel so like less anxiety. I feel less depressed. I feel like I know myself better. I can emotionally regulate better.
Maybe I should do this more. Maybe the people on Instagram are right.
Literally. Buying a bigger journal. I'm like, now we're talking.
Yeah. Wow. And how do you feel about people not loving writing but maybe preferring to type, or verbally journaling, like dictating? Like, do you think the handwriting process is important, or do you think that there are many different mediums you can use to journal and they're all as effective?
I think there are many different versions for sure. I also recently journaled by using color. Literally. I got myself
wait,
like
tell
these,
me.
yeah,
What
it's
do you
kind
mean?
of fun. I just like I get these like oil crayons kind of, and then I sit down and I only have these, I think it's like 7 colors. That's it. And then I just think, what am I experiencing? What am I feeling? And I grab the color that in my mind represents that, and I mix and create this painting almost.
Cool.
That's just a visual representation of what I'm feeling. Because sometimes I don't have words yet to describe what I'm experiencing. So putting it in color is almost an easier way to process it first before I have made up my mind or have any specific thoughts on it. Also, you know, some things don't really have to be chewed on that much. It's more like an emotional release. Just like, oh, here's the color.
I love that. Yeah.
Try it. It's actually really fun.
Yeah, I would love to try it. Wow. Yeah, and I think that expands the boundaries of what journaling can be even more. Yeah. Because I've only ever thought of it in terms of words and like language. But then now that you've said that, I'm thinking about how much language limits us. Because often I know I'm feeling something, right? But if someone was to just ask for one word about how I'm feeling, it's sometimes very hard to put a finger on that. And I think sometimes when you define it with a word, you almost like tell yourself what to feel, or like it can like remove the like authentic feeling, because you're like, oh, I'm just tired. Like you're just naming it something that maybe it's not.
Exactly. You're trying to
like reduce it down into just one word based on like the language that we have. I mean, it's helpful that you know like 5 languages. So you could be like, what do I want to journal in today?
Well, it's exactly in the same way, right? Words in different languages have different weight.
Yeah.
It's also an interesting thing, right? Try and journal in, and if you know different languages, it's incredibly nice to journal in. Some days I feel like English. Some days I feel like need to journal in Norwegian. It's kind of because the emotional state is also more closely connected to a certain language on a certain day. And yeah, same thing with just coloring, right?
Yeah.
It's a different language. It's a different emotion that you can kind of pinpoint it better with.
So you brought up a quote on your Instagram, and I would love to unpack it a bit more. The quote was, "There's no such thing as being fully healed because you are not broken." And if you believe that we're not broken, then what does healing mean to you?
I think inevitably everyone has something and some experience that is quote unquote like outside of the norm, or we try and categorize it as such. But if everyone has an experience like that, which is inevitable because we're humans, why should we categorize it as being broken and not just this is the human experience? It's a part of us. Trauma, sad experiences, happy experiences, anything that shapes us into becoming who we are is a part of the experience that we are experiencing. And like I touched on before, it's like this pain that is inevitable, kind of, because we all experience stuff. It's not a pain that we're trying to repair. It's a pain that we're trying to get more comfortable with, so that our human experience is more comfortable. And that's kind of the thing where I'm like, healing is not trying to get rid of the emotions we're experiencing. It's trying to understand them and then create a more comfortable human experience for ourselves. And yeah, that's kind of how I see healing, because I don't want to see it as being broken. Like it's such a harsh thing, because that means we're just trying to get rid of our human experience. And
And I think there's this assumption in the word broken.
Yeah.
That there's like wrong with you.
Yeah, like what's wrong with you?
Yeah,
Go to therapy.
I need to be
It needs to be like, go there. And I think that's also why we have such a bad look upon therapy often, right? Why people are so apprehensive about going there, because they're like, well, that means I'm broken. That means like I need help. But like therapy is just a person looking at you, trying to understand you, holding up a mirror and being like, hey, how about this? Have you looked at that? And I think journaling is the same thing, right? You're just like pulling up that mirror to yourself when you're reading the page back, which is why I think it's so important to actually read back on your thoughts. Because you're looking at the mirror, reflecting on yourself. You're like, oh, okay, interesting. So let me look at that. Let me understand it better.
How beautiful that we're all shaped by such different experiences, right? Some light, some heavy, some, you know, we think about with like this positive nostalgia, some that are like, oh, okay, was it like a little something that happens in my body when I think about that time? Like, I just think that's so fascinating. You know, like every single snowflake is different. Like every human is so wonderfully different. And I wish that we embraced everything that made us us without needing to compare it to someone else telling us that we should be anything new or changed or different.
Yeah. Especially with social media, there's this, and you can see it in how people look, I think, right? There's a certain world standard of beauty suddenly, right? Because everyone gets fed the same type of, this is a beautiful face, right? So it's the same thing with our experience of ourselves and personalities almost, right? We think that we need to act a certain way to be normal. Which, very heavy on this, because like, what the fuck is normal, right? We're all normal. We're all having just same thing as like categorizing, for example, ADHD as right? It's categorized as a mental, like almost like a mental disease, right? It's like categorized as that in the Bible,
psychology,
exactly, psychology, yes.
Medical documents.
Like I have it in German, but like yes, exactly this. And
give us the German,
right? And it's almost like we get you're categorized as, oh, I have ADHD, and it's like I have it, right? It's like no,
something medicalized.
Yes, medicalized. It's like, but the thing is like no, it's a part of your human experience. And it's seen as something abnormal, which no, it's just literally you don't have the experience of the majority of the world, but it doesn't mean that it is a bad thing. Quite contrary, it can be absolutely amazing, and it gives the world such a new perspective that it would be incredibly boring if we wouldn't have that, right?
I love the term neurodivergence. I just think that like whoever coined that and made that popular did an amazing job, because language is so important. And like neurodiverse, you know, it's just like we champion diverse experience and what diversity brings all of us. And I think, if we were to see that everyone's brains are just like different, it's not that some are like better or normal. It's just that literally, as you say, the human experiences we all bring to life are different, and like we can embrace that.
Yeah.
What do you think stops people from journaling?
I don't know, that's a good question. What stops people from journaling? I think a lot of people are scared of themselves, honestly.
Amen.
Yeah, me included. A lot of the times I'm just like, oh damn, that's a dark door. I don't want to do that for later. Right? I think we're scared of the overwhelming emotion we will feel once we look at it. Look at ourselves. I think maybe sometimes people are scared of, maybe I won't actually like that part of myself, right? It's like meeting a new person that you've like suppressed for a while. Yeah, I think it's a scary thing. I think it takes courage to do.
Yeah, I love that you described we're scared of ourselves because we're scared to meet parts that can cause us to have a lot of emotions, right? And I think almost the root there is that we're scared of the feelings. We're scared of the emotions that come from looking at parts of ourselves that are scary. And it's so sad to me that we live in a culture that demonizes feeling.
Truly.
Because I think if we had a culture that really allowed deep grief and like sadness for long period, prolonged sadness, right? And if we all knew how to approach others who were in a spot of sadness and to allow that and to like revel in like the beauty and the richness of those experiences, then there wouldn't be a fear of feeling those things, and then I think there wouldn't be a fear of looking at ourselves deeply.
I had a moment where I was just like, I was in a cafe some days ago, and I was just like, I had a moment where I was just like, I just had a difficult conversation, and I just sat and like some tears were coming, and then just this woman just came up to me. She's like, "Are you alright?" Right? and which is a beautiful thing, and it's good to show emotion, and it's also incredibly good to let strangers see it, because it's also not it's not something to be ashamed of, honestly.
I think that's something I've really learned and become comfortable with in the last few years, particularly because I get recognized quite a lot. And I think I felt in the earlier years of having a YouTube channel that I needed to be this eternal sunshine. But when people meet me, and I need to be really positive and optimistic, like I am often in my videos. And so if I'm out and about and I'm feeling really tired or stressed or low, that I somehow need to hide those experiences. But now, oh God.
You're like, hello.
If you catch me in the streets of Brighton after therapy, you will see me sobbing. You will see me sobbing every single week. And I actually feel quite comfortable now. Like the other day I came out of therapy and I got recognised about 30 seconds after coming out. But I just, I said to her, I was like, oh, I've just come out of therapy. Like, I'm feeling really emotional right now. And I think because I just sort of owned it, it turned into like a really lovely experience between us, where she just gave me a hug. She's like, oh, I hope you're okay. Like, go sit on the beach and like feel these things, and it was really lovely. And it's like you feeling those things in public gives other people the permission to also feel them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
because I think also if you would have stayed in that standard you had created for yourself, I was just like, okay, I need to be a sunshine. I need to show everyone that this is this is me. And yeah, I mean, every human has a plethora of human emotion, and just that one emotion it's 10% of you,
literally. Yeah. So when journaling becomes more of a daily ritual, I think you do start to notice these patterns in yourself, right? You start to notice how you're showing up in different settings. And one of the things that you've been honest about online that showed up for you is a pattern called people pleasing. And I would love if maybe you could first tell us what that means to be a people pleaser, and then perhaps give us some examples of how that was showing up in your life.
Yeah. I think for a long time, I didn't understand that I was a people pleaser, because I also had this thing where I was like, oh, I'm an eternal sunshine and always good vibes, right? And that's often the case for people pleasers. They're perceived as these like super positive, agreeable people that bring good energy into a room, and everybody likes them, right? And I was like, okay, great. I guess that's a good personality trait. I'll keep on doing it, right? And the thing is, it is a positive thing. It is incredibly nice to have that possibility to give good energy to people. But sometimes, not always, some people are just always sunshines, and it's a good thing, and they do it because it just feels good and it's a natural thing to do. But I learned, upon looking at myself a bit more, I was like, oh, interesting. I don't think I actually have the energy to keep this up. So I noticed, I was like, oh, I reached a point of pain, of experience of like, discomfort, that I couldn't keep up this agreeableness, this like giving people all my energy so that they can feel comfortable, and so that the room is a good vibe. I took it upon myself to make it a
peacekeeping.
Positive, literally. You don't people please to people please others in a way. It's more like you do it to please yourself so that you can have a sense of safety.
Amen. Because there's benefits to being liked.
Exactly. And that's the thing. If you grow up and you have this like a bit tumultuous experience of your childhood, and there are people in your lives that need a lot of this attention, or your love is attached to a certain condition. Yeah. If your love is conditioned in any way, shape, or form, and you feel like every time you go into a room, you immediately sense the energy, and you feel like, and you need to like make it good so that you can feel safe.
So
right?
relatable.
You're walking on your eggshells all the time. Yeah.
You're really honest about the fact that you were single for like 5 years. And I think you also, I don't know if I can say this in the podcast, but you say it online, so I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
You were single for 5 years. I think you were celibate for 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you recently kind of had a relationship and then went through a breakup and are now single again. I think you're single again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would love to discuss journaling in the context of romantic love. And I just think there's so much wrapped up in romantic love to understand about ourselves and how we act with partners, in processing and healing things. And maybe you could first speak a bit to the experience of being single in adulthood, because I think there's often a lot of pressure online when you're single to be happily independent, right? And like not to be craving a partner, and like, you know, just love yourself fully. And maybe you could speak a bit more to what your experience of being single was like and maybe what you learned during that time.
Yeah. I think it's difficult and inevitable to at some point think, what's wrong with me, you know, when you're single for that long. You're like, why is everyone finding people, and why am I single, and why does no one choose to love me, right? All these things. And it's you know, self-doubt. 100% it creeps in. But I think the most important thing to realize is that I would rather, and yeah, I realized that for myself. But I was like, I would rather be single than in an experience of a relationship that isn't going to nurture me and me nurturing someone else. And if that would be to be in the wrong way, I would rather be single than have an experience that is mediocre or bad.
When you were in that period of being single for 5 years, did you feel like you had to change something about yourself in order to find that love? Or what was the kind of journey there?
There's a difference between, you know, meeting someone and then compromising and meeting someone and changing. You know? Because I think through being single for that long, I really learned how to like myself a lot, right?
Yeah.
Which is so incredibly important.
Amazing.
It's
like the whole like realizing you're whole, right? Exactly. Like without anyone else in the picture, like I am me and I love me.
Yeah. How can I nurture myself, right? And it's such an incredible gift. So I don't know, these 5 years also shaped me a lot into creating a confidence in myself and that I am a great human being to be with, because I enjoy hanging out with myself. Why wouldn't others, right?
I feel like being in love has taught me so many things about myself that I couldn't know on my own. And a lot of them actually not the best things about myself. Like I actually think sometimes there were just parts of my personality that could only be exposed when in relationship with others and when interacting with other personalities. I'd love to hear your experience of learning about yourself through others and kind of like what these limitations of self-knowledge alone are.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, that's a good one. First thing I think is it's such an easy thing to never confront yourself with the opinions about you that come from other people, right? To never expose yourself to critique. It's incredibly easy because you can just be like, well, no, I choose to not acknowledge or look at what you're saying. Just stay in the lane that you're in, right? It's really easy. And like you're saying, there is a huge amount of knowledge about yourself and how you communicate and what you like, what you don't like, how you act towards others when you are in a relationship. And it's, yeah, I think that's why I am a relationship person. A romantic relationship is literally like the biggest mirror you can 100%.
Have. Yeah.
And it can be so emotionally challenging. And you're just like, what? This is how you see me? That's the... And
this is how I react? Like, exactly. Oh my God, what am I doing? You know?
Like, oh my God, I'm sorry. And just acknowledging your mistakes, right? You learn so much about how you interact and how you... I think you learn a lot about yourself when you are in a discussion, right? How you treat yourself, how you treat others, when you're mad.
Specifically a conflict, right?
Exactly. Because conflict means there's some tension there and there's a confrontation in personalities. Yeah. And you need to understand how and why you act the way you act. And that can only be reflected to you when a person experiences you.
Yeah,
And
100%. Do you have any examples of conflict that you'd be willing to share from any relationship in life that maybe has taught you something about yourself?
Yeah, I think a huge one from my last relationship is basically this difference in how we experience life and how we process it. For example, I process it with a lot of external emotions, and I talk about it very vividly, and I'm like, here are my emotions, and here is my stress, and here's my sadness and happiness and all that. And my partner at the time processes it very differently, and it's in his own way, and it took me a lot of time to try and understand it, and it took me a lot of time for both of us to try and meet each other in the middle. And by doing that, by being so open in our communication, that we really try to understand each other on this, and this difference of, I don't want to say like one is more rational than the other, but there was for
that
sure
basically was it. Emotional or rational.
Yeah, it's like more rational, more emotional, which both is a valid way to process life and to process things that are happening in a relationship. But it's also in our power to sit down and communicate well and really use communication to our advantage to try and understand why we are processing the way we're processing. And I think both of us learned a lot through that relationship, so that it gave me a huge amount of tools to take with me, literally. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. No, I had a similar experience with my ex-boyfriend. He just processed the world like through his head and rationality much more than I did. And it was actually only being in that relationship that made me realize that I'm a quote unquote emotional sensitive person. Because I think I had never even seen myself through that lens until I was in such close proximity with someone who had such a contrasting view of life. And sometimes you need that contrast, as you say, to like kind of hold up a mirror and be like, oh wow, these traits about myself aren't something that everyone experiences. And so, you know, when I'm trying to relate to others, they quite literally don't relate because they don't process the world like that. And I think that's so fun, because that's when you learn about yourself.
100%. Yeah, the contrast is the most amazing thing in that way, right? And then it can work or it cannot work, but then through communication, through really trying your best to understand, that's when you grow. And that's a beautiful thing. Like, I also don't ever see any relationship as like when it ends, like I don't see it as a bad thing. I see it not as a like, oh, I failed to be in this relationship, blah, 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 like we couldn't figure it out. No, it is such a valuable thing to take with me, this like little pot of knowledge that I have now 100%. Through being so intensely confronted with this other person and their world view and how they process. It's beautiful. It's a really nice thing.
I think it's interesting in this conversation how we've almost created this binary between being a rational person and being an emotional person, when in relationships and in deep intimate connections, surely the most rational thing is to be responding to our feelings, because our feelings are the very basis of what's happening here and why we love each other and why we want to be together is feelings. And it's interesting that like we almost place logic and feeling as something mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
Can you think of like a better word for rational? Like someone who processes the world through their heads more than their hearts, or...
I think the first thing is to acknowledge that there isn't a right way of processing in general, right? So I also wouldn't say like, even though I'm used to, let's cry because I'm breaking up or blah, 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 right? Even seeing that as the right way is...
prescriptive.
Yeah. It's like an expectation that someone has to react the same way as I do just because this feels so natural to me. And I think with my ex, it was an interesting thing because he was like, you know what? I think we shouldn't actually describe ourselves and put ourselves into these boxes of, oh, I'm more rational and you're more emotional, because both of these things are, like you say, intertwined and not mutually exclusive. And just because someone is processing differently doesn't mean that we should see this as a problem, but rather see it as point of interest in trying to understand each other more. Because the more we kind of polarize, right, these things, the more we tend to feel alone in our experience of the world. Yeah, it creates more conflict than coming together, I think. Yeah, even though, right, you want to be like, oh, emotions is the true way of experiencing it. And I think if a person is very logical, right, doesn't mean that they don't have the emotion connected to it. But
yeah. They just process it differently.
Exactly.
I think it's hard to detach from how we're socialized, though, because while there's not necessarily like a right way to process or feel things, there is something to say for how we are trained through culture, through society, through expectations of gender to perhaps not display certain behaviors. And I do think generally a lot of men are just not taught to display emotion in the same way. And so while you don't want to be prescriptive and say you should cry about this or you should, you know, externalize this emotion through your body to like release it somatically, like you don't want to say like, oh, do that's the right thing. But at the same time, like, is that the right thing? Part of me is like, you know, humans should be feeling, like we're like feeling creatures, and the reason we have such large brains is literally because of social connections and how we process feelings around relationships. And so while I want to respect a more intellectualization of an experience, I also want to challenge and nudge people to feel things more. But maybe that's just I'm biased as a more sensitive person who's had to overcome biases against that sensitivity.
No, 100%. And I think I also thought similarly and still do to a large extent, but also I've just learned so much through trying to understand the world through a lens that is more logical, and seeing where kind of the boundary is in between, like, oh, so someone is just suppressing an emotion versus someone is actually just experiencing it differently, and that's just not the level or the threshold of the emotion turning into tears or turning into anger or sadness or these things. It's just at a different level. In the same way that people just also have a different emotional, like they have an like I said in the beginning, I had an ADHD, for example, right? It's just a different activity, different experience of the world. So yeah, I don't know, I've had so many discussions about this, and it's just really interesting how different one can process emotion. And also, what does it mean, like the experience of sadness, for example? What signifies that sadness is sadness? Like why does the experience of sadness in my body feel this way, and why do I think that other people need to experience sadness the exact same way? Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I did a class on this at uni about how like if you just looked at the pure sensations in your body, two feelings could look sensationally the same. So let's say like your heart's racing, you have sweaty palms, that actually could look like fear or excitement. But then the way your brain decides what emotion that is based on context of what's around you, history, what you've learned to respond to based on the contextual cues around you, and then you give it like a language, a label, a word of this feeling. And so I think that's really interesting, because then when we're thinking about sadness, that will never mean the same thing to two people. But also then when we're socialized into not experiencing our feelings, then maybe we have a marker that is sadness, but we're also just not like displaying it because we've been taught not to think that we can be sad.
100%. Yeah, and there is for sure a difference in, generalization, but how men and women are are taught to, like, which emotions we are taught to be allowed to show. Right?
I feel like I am such an infinitely different person because of my ex-boyfriend, and also even though we know now that a romantic iteration of our relationship is not the best iteration, it doesn't mean that I don't still have so much love and gratitude for that time that we spent in that level of intimacy, because the amount of learnings that both of us have just absolutely transform the way that we operate in the whole rest of our lives. And I think that's so gorgeous, and something that we don't speak about enough in relationships that end, that like there's so much beauty in an ending. It's like, you know, you get to take all these like gorgeous lessons and learnings into every future phase, and rather than looking back at it as like something that failed or didn't work, it's like, oh, we got to experience that for this phase of life, and now we both move into slightly different iterations and phases.
100%. And what better compliment in the world, honestly, is it to change, to not lose the love, but to change the shape of it. Like, to actually go from a relationship to a friendship is such a beautiful thing, because that takes so much energy
100%.
and love to be able to like keep this person in your life. And what a great compliment that both of you want to still keep each other in their lives. Great thing.
Like my ex-boyfriend, so we were together for nearly 4 years, and then when we broke up, we had a 6-month period of like no contact, nothing, no talking, no following each other, like just nothing. But now we call every single week.
Oh, nice.
And so we've transitioned our relationship into something that genuinely feels like the most supportive, wonderful, unproblematic friendship. And I think for us, having that processing period to understand that the shape of this relationship is going to change, but that we both want to be in each other's lives, and how to make that practically happen was like so important for us. And I'd love to hear if you have any learnings about how to transition a romantic relationship into a friendship that works, and maybe how to know if you have a relationship where you should do that or not.
Ooh, I think before you get into a relationship, it's also important to ask yourself, like, would I be friends with this person if I wasn't intimate? Like, would I be friends with this person if I wasn't intimate with them, right? Would I date them without the intimacy? And that's how you can determine if there's an actual friendship in that romantic connection and not just intimacy, right?
Yeah.
And so that for me is like, oh, that means it's something I can keep. It's something that is valuable beyond just physical connection that I have with someone.
Do you think everyone should be friends with their ex?
I think unless something bad happened that makes you obviously not be able to have a friendship. Let's say I think you shouldn't get into a relationship if you wouldn't think that you could be friends after even. I think that determines...
Well, it says a lot about the nature of the relationship.
Exactly.
That is so true.
Yeah. So maybe ask yourself it before you get into a relationship with someone.
How do you think the world would be different if everyone had to complete your journal? Had to complete the DailyDeep?
I have so many thoughts on that. I think while I created it, I sat down with my sister as a co-created project. And we sat down and we're like, the interesting part of it, to create a journal like this, is that you have to create questions that everyone can answer. How do you create questions, 365 of them, that are both deep and answerable by literally all of humanity, right?
Yeah.
I can't ask you in the journal, like, oh, how is it to be a man if you're not having the experience of being a man? So it must be general. And then we sat down and we're like, oh, there's kind of just this group of topics that every human has. It's just a few topics, but then they're all encompassing and everyone has them. Everyone is experiencing all these. Everyone goes through these things. And so seeing that we all have this collective human experience that is connecting us in all these ways, and that we all have the same questions kind of in our heads, is both humbling and educating at the same time. And I think once we realize that everyone is connected in these core things, we understand so much about ourselves and about humanity as a collective. And yeah, if you actually take your time and go through each and every question, you understand yourself better, and also you understand other people better as well. And I think if you then also take it to another round and like ask people these questions as well, that's when you get a contrast and you can understand other people even more. So yeah, understanding yourself better will always be a gift to humanity in a cheesy way, right? Yeah.
It's like, this phrase, you can only know others as deeply as you know yourself. I do think there's a level of truth to that. It's like, if someone in your life is sad, if you have sat with your own experience of sadness, then you know how to meet this person in theirs to a degree, right? You know the kind of things to be curious about, the kind of questions to ask, the kind of things that they might need. So I think you're so right. Like, through each of us having these conversations with ourselves in journal form, then we can have better conversations with everyone, like 100%. Verbally and non-verbally. I feel like it's so like warm being in your presence.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
I'm so happy I got to know you, and it's really funny that this is almost like our first conversation.
I know, isn't that mad? We can always go back and watch our first conversation.
We're like,
yeah. I would love to ask you, what was a moment of casual magic for you this week? So just like a little moment in the mundane everyday that was beautiful.
Oh, you know what? I was traveling so much, and I think again, traveling now, and even though I spent only like 3 days now in London, I feel like I'm traveling differently. So I'm traveling in a way of just being like, okay, I just want to travel in a mundane way. I want to experience the everyday that it is to be in this place where I'm at. So I literally went to the same coffee shop every morning for those 3 days consecutively, and just the joy of the barista like remembering me and being like, oh, you're back.
Aww.
I was like, oh, great. That means I've lived here in London. Someone has acknowledged my presence, and that means I've experienced what it is to live here, I guess.
Yeah. Also, I love how you're saying you've lived such mundane days in London. I'm like, girl, you planned a whole meetup. What do you mean?
It was beautiful. That made me so happy. Also magic, but maybe not as casual.
No, that's just magic. Like all these humans who feel so connected to you, getting to meet them in person. So cool.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
I also like to end every episode with a journal question for my audience to reflect on. So you guys listening, if you want to grab a journal, if you have your DailyDeep around, you can grab the DailyDeep and go to the section at the back, which is freeform pages. And you can also just get your notes app out if you like, or also just answer this in your head if you prefer. The question for this week is, I want to ask you to be honest with yourself about how you're really feeling right now. Is there something you've been avoiding or thinking about constantly? Or maybe you're just not ready to say it out loud? I dare you to just start where you are. And I dare you to write it down. I think you'd be surprised. Just literally trying to put some words to these intangible feelings in our bodies can just work wonders. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you so much for coming on this little journey with us into the journaling world. And if no one has told you today, I just want to remind you that you are enough. You are enough exactly as you are. As we discussed in today's episode, you are already whole. You are already healed. And I think sometimes we come to podcast episodes with titles like this because we think that there's something wrong with us or that we need to fix. I need to learn to journal to fix this thing in my life. And I really hope that you can leave today knowing that you are exactly enough. You're enough at the start of this episode. You're enough now. And if you take up journaling, you can only learn more about your own enoughness. I'm sending you all so much love, and
stay tuned and stay magical.